Welcome back to my channel. I'm a jealous guy. Now, continue on with part 2 of my son Blake video review, which was uploaded on the 6th of April 2021. Where did we get to? What did we cover in part 1? Basically, we covered Brian Smith's passport. He couldn't tell the dates, he couldn't work out the dates from his passport, which was bullshit. His passport was fine, had the correct stamps, it was all nice, neat, tidy, and there's no reason why he couldn't work out these dates, and they were confusing. So then we'll continue on. And so it's talking about the time frame in question is August of 2017. This is from the transcript from the video. This is his words. So he arrived in August 2017 in the Philippines and stayed here with Maricels for about a month. Now, that's where we're disagreeing on dates, is when she actually went back to Mindanao. And I was thinking it was in mid-September, beginning of October to mid-October. So, on my chart here, we've got the months and years up the top: October, November, December 2017, January 2018, February and March 2018. Now, Brian's saying that this is when he believes that Maricels went to Mindanao. So, he's saying beginning of October to mid-October. And she's saying it was in the beginning of November. So, start of November, this is when Maricels says she left to go to Mindanao. So I continue on just reading from the transcript. Beginning of October to mid-October, and she's saying it was the beginning of November. Yeah, well, whatever. Regardless, Maricels went home to Mindanao. She was going to sell her property there and then come back. Well, time went on and on. So I'm just unclear why someone would return to Mindanao. Brian Smith, the new love of her life, has come from the US. The big businessman with lots of money. He's come from the US to the Philippines to see Maricels, and off she goes to Mindanao. Why wouldn't she have gone to Mindanao when he wasn't there, when he was in the US? Anyway, something will come up later with that. So she's going to sell her property there and then come back, and time went on and on. And that dragged out for weeks and weeks, months. So this is this dark green area. So it dragged out for weeks and weeks and months. So months, plural, is a minimum 2 months. So November and December is the minimum that Brian Smith's talking about, 2 months. It may have been more, so I could have gone into the lighter green somewhere along there. So it dragged out for weeks and weeks and months, Maricels being away in Mindanao. And finally, I just asked Maricels, hey, are you coming back? Are we a couple? Are we moving forward? But you know what's going on? And she said no. She wanted to break up and stay in Mindanao. So it's dragged on for weeks and weeks and months. So that's a minimum 2 months. So this is sort of the breakup date with Maricel, when she's told him, no, we're not staying together and I'm not coming back to Bohol. So she said no, she wanted to break up and stay in Mindanao. It was quite a shock to me, because we hadn't had any arguments. Everything was fine, and she left. And she just left and stayed gone. So after some time, I was a bit flabbergasted, but again, this, her absence had dragged out for quite some time. So he's saying still that the absence, Maricel being away and dragged out for quite some time, they hadn't had any arguments. This is where I say I couldn't understand why Maricel, after waiting in Bohol for Brian Smith to return from the US, once he did, she would then go to Mindanao to sell a house. She was building their house, but I believe Tintin was doing videos on the house being built, so I take it he was sort of supervising it. But just seemed strange to me that Brian Smith arrives and off Maricel goes, and that there was nothing wrong, nothing happening. So she hitched up and left and stayed gone. Her absence had dragged on for quite a bit of time, and I was kind of figuring some things out. Maricel she was single, she was 33, at this time had always been single, never been married, never been tied down, and I think the thought of coming here and living in Bohol, away from her family and her friends, and getting married, living here in Bohol was just not, she just wasn't digging it. And I, on the other hand, didn't come all this way to be alone. And so, when she just flat out told me that she didn't want to be together anymore and didn't want to get married, I began looking elsewhere. So it's saying dragged on for weeks and weeks and months. So as I said, a minimum would be 2 months here. So she said that's when they're broken up. That's when she said, no, I don't want to get married. I don't want to move forward. I don't want to be in a relationship. So she didn't want to be together anymore and didn't want to get married. I began looking elsewhere. So I began an online relationship with Marley. Now, this is where the dates, this is where all the lies and the deceit comes in. So he says, broke up with Maricel, and that's when he started an online relationship with Marley, the mother of Blake. So and this began in early November 2017. So he starts chatting with Marley early November 2017. Maricel dates said she left Mindanao in 2017. Early November 2017. So the relationship with Marley, this began in early November 2017. And we chatted for a couple of months, which would be correct. If that's correct, chatted for a couple of months because he met up with Marley in January 2018. And that's when Blake was conceived. So He's stating that that he'd started chatting with Marley in November 2017. But in one of Jeff Mead's live streams, Marley said that they'd been chatting when Brian was in the US and they were building their house. So there's a possibility that it actually even started before that. But you look at this chart, Maricel, the door hadn't even closed behind her in Bohol when Brian Smith says he started chatting with Marley. But he said he didn't do it till after they'd split up, which is here, which obviously is bullshit. His own words. So, in one of his recent videos in regards to all the permits and that, he said that the house was already built when he came here to live, and so, okay, anyway, this began in early November. I started looking elsewhere, so I began an online relationship with Marley, and this began in early November 2017, and we chatted for a couple of months. Ended up meeting in Cebu in January of 18. Excuse me, began a relationship. The relationship had really begun online a couple of months before. The result of that relationship was a little boy named Blake. Now, this is where it's been said that I cheated on Maricel and had the relationship with Marley behind her back. Now, going on his words, Maricel, even Brian said he left here. Maricel said she left here to go to Mindanao. This is when they met, but they chatted online for a couple of months. So obviously he was speaking to Marley online behind Maricel's back, if not before that. So was he cheating on Maricel? Looks like he was. Now, it's not true. Maricel and I were breaking up several months before Marley and I began chatting online. How could that be? Maricel left. He said it was weeks and weeks and months. But he said it was several months before he started chatting with Marley online. But he said it was in November. So how could that even be true? Now, Maricel was going to come back in January and do the paperwork, and she did. And we ended up reconciling, and I had to leave back to the United States soon thereafter. I think that was like February when I went back. So I get back to the States and then find out that Marley is pregnant and with Blake, and now things start to get complicated. And that's an understatement. That I had begun a relationship with Marley, I want to make it clear. So I'm going to leave it at that for this video. We've gone quite a bit, but just to reiterate, Brian said he left, Maricel left the Mindanao here. Maricel says here. I would trust Maricel's recollection more than Brian's. You know, anyone with a partner, girlfriend, wife, ex-partner, ex-girlfriend knows that they never, when you do something wrong, they never forget a date and remind you about it 5 years later. So Maricel says she's left here. Brian said it went on for weeks and weeks and months. So looking at a minimum 2 months, which would be here. This is when he met up with Marley. He said he chatted for a couple of months before he met up with her, which makes it come back to here. But he says he didn't cheat on her. didn't cheat on Maricel, and that he didn't start chatting online with Marley for several months after they split up. Several is more than two. Two's a couple. Several's like three or more. So there's no possible way that could be true, what he's saying. So he's trying to bullshit you with his timelines. And I'm going to leave it at that. We'll come back to another part and continue on through this video. But we will continue on with more lies and deceit. Thank you for watching up until now. I did say it was going to be quite long. Thank you for watching. Hope you watch part 3, and we'll show you some more lies and deceit. Thank you.